Okay, so yeah, good evening to friends and participants from India, and good afternoon to participants from Estonia. Thank you all for joining with us. And at the very outset, I, on behalf of Center for Naga Tribal Language Studies, would like to welcome, first and foremost, the Pro Vice Chancellor of Nagaland University, Kohima campus, Professor A.K. Mishra, who will be giving us the introductory remark. Our two distinguished speakers, Sir D.S. Teron from Center for Kabi Studies, Dipu, and Dr. Margaret Lindo, faculty in the University of Tartu, Estonia. Yeah, so my esteemed colleagues and faculty from Nagaland University and all the participants from across the globe, welcome to the international webinar on folklore and folkloristic studies in Northeast India, organized by Center for Naga Tribal Language Studies, Nagaland University. Before I hand over the time to our Pro Vice Chancellor, I would like to highlight a bit about the center. So the Center for Naga Tribal Language Studies was established in 2016. So it's still a very nascent center. And the core emphasis of the center is to study on the Naga tribal communities with regard to their language, culture, tradition, and folklore, as it was and is. So towards this end, the center aims to collect, explore, and promote all these aspects through the lens of academia inquiry. And presently, the center has scholars from working in different Naga communities from both language and cultural perspective. So this webinar is definitely going to benefit the scholars of the center, in particular in many folds. And yeah, somehow this pandemic has been a blessing in weird ways, especially in academia. As during this lockdown, the center had organized many national and international webinars through which we got the opportunity to meet, learn, and interact with eminent linguists, folklorists, and scholars from alike fields from across the globe and within. So yeah, this pandemic has been somehow a blessing in disguise. And so here we are again to hear and interact with distinguished folklorists from two different parts of the globe, yet sharing the same interests. And on that note, I would like to now request the Pro Vice Chancellor of Nagaland University, Kohima campus, Professor A.K. Mishra, to give the opening remark. Sir?
Sir, you're muted, sir. Please unmute yourself first, sir.
Yes. It's audible?
Yeah, it's audible, sir. Audible now.
Okay. Thank you, Chairperson Imli Lenla and the moderator Yanbeni, and for the Center for Naga Tribal Language Studies, as well as the other distinguished speakers of this international webinar, and my dear participants. It gives me immense pleasure to associate myself at this webinar being organized by the Center for Naga Tribal Language Studies of Nagaland University. I, on the behalf of the Honorable Vice Chancellor of the Nagaland University, as well as from my own behalf, I compliment the Center for organizing this webinar on folklore and folkloristics in the Northeast India. It's my pleasure, and I feel privileged to give the opening remark for this webinar. Folklore is an important source for writing of the history. It provides a platform to understand the cultural diversities, social values, living standard of the different social groups of indigenous people, as well as the marginal classes. Folklore is a source of traditional knowledge which is passed from one generation to another generation. Now, India is a multi-ethnic, multi-religious country, and it is having a diverse society. The cultural heritage gives indigenous people their identity. Now, a lot of studies have been made by anthropologists, by historians, by sociologists on folklore and folkloristics. Folklore signifies the traditional beliefs, legends, customs among the common people, and folklores are the treasure of myths and legends. Northeast India is inhabited by over 200 tribal groups out of 635 tribal groups in the country. India is an ethnically and religiously diverse country. Now, coming to the Northeast in particular, we have different tribes. To name a few, we have Nisij, Garoj, Khasij, Mijoj, Kukij, Bodoj, Dimasa, Aoj, Angamis, Lothaj, and many others. They have rich traditions. They have rich traditions, having full with social values, cultures, and they offer different religious prayers, lifestyles, rituals, which have been identical or which are unique in their own way. And these are transmitted over the ages from one generation to another generations. Now, with the emphasis on preservation of traditional and social values of the folklore, the collections are increasingly being digitized, and it is put in the form of a repository for the future use in the research studies. Some of the indigenous tribal values are on the verge of extinction. So it is a call of duty to the researchers, to the professors, to the distinguished scholars to preserve their values in the form of digitizations. During the post-independence period, attempt has been made to preserve the social values, traditions of indigenous tribal people, social groups, by establishing different departments, the universities, centers, and different educational institutions. When we talk about folkloristics, it is based on two premises. One is field work, consisting of the identification of a folk group and collection of socio-cultural values, traditions, rituals observed in festivals, ceremonies, food habits, lifestyles, etc. The second one is archiving, editing, documenting, publishing these collections and analyzing for future studies. The honorable speakers of today, honorable speakers will highlight or deliberate on different points, highlighting the traditional values and social values of this indigenous group of people. Now, if we see during the last few decades, maybe during after the independence, a serious attempt has been made by a researcher to keep the values, so to go for oral to the collection of data, to collect the informations, to preserve it for further analysis and further analysis. In this way, the Center for Nagaland NLTS is doing a human service in the area of research and preserving the diverse cultural values of the different groups of indigenous people residing in this Northeast India. I once again thank and compliment to these organizers and wish all the best. And I'm looking forward to hear from our esteemed distinguished scholars who will be presenting their papers, speaking on the occasions on this international webinar. I wish all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for the insightful talk and for encouraging the center as well. So yes, as sir rightly pointed out, as is well known, Northeast India, with its hills and plains, is the homeland of an almost bewildering variety of ethnic groups. The region has been and still remains a veritable folklorist paradise, they say. So with the confluence of people popularly described as tribals, and in most cases without a written history of their own, and in the absence of limitations of those materials, including written literature, the region provides a vast folklore material, which if studied systematically and scientifically, I believe may help in building up the history of the different ethnic groups of Northeast India. And with this end in view, CNTLS, Center for Naga Tribal Language Studies, Nagaland University has organized this webinar by inviting in two eminent folklorists who will be talking on the various aspects of folklore and folkloristic studies. So without wasting much time, I would like to call upon Ms. Yanbeni Yanthan, who will be moderating this session. And Ms. Yanbeni Yanthan is a folklorist and a poet. She is an assistant professor in CNTLS, Nagaland University, and she has also published and presented in various national and international consortiums organized by Shahidya Academy, then IFLU Hyderabad, Sikkim University, Assam University, Manipur University, and other forums. And also she's a very active member of the Indian Folklore Congress. So with this, I now hand over the time to the moderator, Ms. Yanbeni Anthan.
Okay, thank you so much, Ayan, for your gracious introduction. Thank you. So today, it is both my delight and privilege to introduce our first speaker today. We have two extremely well experienced, very young, dynamic, and extremely intellectual speakers today. And I'm sure we will all come away from this session with a much more enhanced knowledge. Hello. Yeah, we will. I'm sure we will come back, take away from this webinar a much more enhanced understanding of folklore and the way folklore works in the academic world. To begin with, Margaret Lingdaw, she is from the University of Tartu, Faculty of Arts and Humanities, Institute of Cultural Research. She received her PhD in 2016 from the University of Tartu, Estonia. She studied at Ohio State University, Columbus, USA, University College Cork, Ireland, and the University of Tartu, Estonia. She was awarded the position of Albert Lord Fellow 2016 at the Center for Studies in Oral Tradition, University of Missouri. She also received the prestigious Estonian Research Council grant, PUT-JD 746 on the topic Tradition and Vernacular Discourses in the Context of Local Christianities in Northeastern India in 2017. She is also editor for the Journal of the International Society for Folk Narrative Research, which is an extremely prestigious forum. And her research interest includes indigenous folklore, tradition, indigenous ontologies with theoretical focus on current turns in anthropology, the study of religion, and the folkloristics of vernacular religion. I think that it is such an honor for all of us to have her in our space and have her share her knowledge on folklore and folkloristics, because as we know, folklore studies and folkloristics of and in the Northeast has been hugely dominated by English and literary studies and literary traditions. And this paradigm hugely impacts the reading and interpretation of oral narratives because they are being studied by using a literary paradigm. So, given this light, I'm sure Margaret will be throwing light on how it is different, how oral narratives and how folklore is vastly different from the way literary texts function. And with this, I welcome her to the stage. And Margaret, I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much for that kind introduction. Thank you very much, Center for Naga Tribal Language Studies. Respected Pro Vice Chancellor, sir, thank you very much for your valuable comments. And thank you so much, Benny, for having me. I think it is my privilege to be here today and to have so many people listen to me. And to begin this talk on what folklore and folkloristics in Northeastern India would mean, I would start with something really juicy. I'm going to start with a scandal. All right. I'm going to tell you what happened in the 24th of July of 2020. Did you know that American singer and songwriter Taylor Swift, she released her album called Folklore. She dropped it right there. And then, suddenly this hashtag on Twitter, #folklore, started to trend. Now, every time you would go on Google and you would type in folklore, it would lead you directly to Taylor Swift's album. So how would folklorists respond? All right. And I'm going to start with that. I'm going to share my screen with you now, and let's go with, here it is. Okay, just give me a second. All right. Can everyone see my screen? Just say yes or
Yes,
no.
yes,
Benny,
yes,
can
yes.
you see it?
Yes,
All
yes, I
right.
can see it.
So this is the first slide, but let's look at what happened. So I told you that this was a big deal for folklorists because everywhere in Google, I mean, like Taylor Swift, Taylor Swift, Taylor Swift. So what happened was our the president of the International Society for Contemporary Legend Research, Ian Brody, what he did, you can see his photo here. What he did was that he started to make memes, and these memes were absolutely and ultra cool. Have a look. So that's Taylor Swift over there receiving an award. And then, you know, there's an actual definition of folklore there. And it says that Lynn McNeil, okay, she's an American folklorist too. She says that while folklore can be connected to almost everything, everything in fact is not folklore. All right. And then let's go to the next meme. And he was like posting them every hour. Oh, screen seems to have frozen. Okay, there you go. Then, you know, you've got this amazing explanation by Dan Ben Almos, where he says that folklore is actually artistic communication in small groups. Zora Neale Hurston says that it's the boiled down juice of human living. And then I cannot see this other one. How people critique values because of this Zoom setup. No, I can see like people on the side, but I cannot see my own screen. All right, that's fine. But you can read it. Okay. So then we go to the next slide. How do I go to the next slide? Oh God. You see, you understand what's going on.
Yeah, but I don't know why it's not moving.
So Margaret, you can stop your sharing and please start with, means you start reshare again. I think
Oh,
that, yeah, now
okay,
it works.
I tried. Okay, I tried. Okay, so also it says that Roger D. Abrams, very, very iconic folklorist, he says that folklore arises from the creative vernacular response of humans on their gregarious occasions. I'm going to go through all these definitions, all right? So like right now, I'm just reading them. And then Audrey Eliza Kersh said, huh? Folklore is the single most useful method for reconstructing social histories. That's one interesting and a very important point. Then you've got Eli Kangas Maranda. She is no more. She's deceased. She was a Finnish folklorist. And she says that folklore is not learned with the help of a record. And this is very important because what we always make the mistake is that we try to always project folklore to the past. But then we've got this other one called traditional knowledge put into and drawing from practice. And that is our Simon Bronner. He's the author of this book. Okay, you cannot see it.
We can see it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Just the basic handbook of what folkloristics is all about. Then we've got Americo Paradis. Now this guy, he was a Mexican folklorist, and he is one of the most noteworthy scholars who has influenced the field of folklore studies. And he says that folklore is the attitudes and feelings and undercurrents of the emotion of the masses of people who are not recorded in official documents, but which may have profound effects upon events. And when we say people who are not documented, we can think about indigenous people, all right? And Diane Goldstein, she's defensive, you know, she goes and says, a folklorist is not just a glorified anthropologist. No, it's not. So I'll go through all these. But let's look at my favorite one. So you can see the photograph of the lady down there. You know, she has her hands like this. This is Gina Jorgensen. She's a wonderful friend and a colleague. She's teaching in Butler University in America. So Gina was like responding to these to this rush of memes and this you know, people's responses to you know, folklorists responses to this hashtag folklore thing, and she says that this one depicts my mentor, Alan Dundas, in his overcrowded, I cannot read it properly. So he analyzed folklore as driven by anxieties and issues. So Alan Dundas thinks that because Alan Dundas had a lot of influence from, psychology, the psychological study of folklore. But then he said that, which is why he says, Alan Dundas says that folklore is the whims, dreams, fears, and musings of people. All right, but we have to look at context. We have to look at what influences people. And in the case of Alan Dundas, a lot of it has to do with the Freudian theory of folklore. All right. So now that we've gone through these definitions of folklore, let's think about what is folklore. All right. In a nutshell, I would say that folklore is text. But what kind of text? I'm not talking about literature, but because literature is a result of the creative imagination of an individual, but a lot of folklore is creativity. And let me make this, let me try to explain what I mean by text. Text is verbal communication. So when you speak of folklore, one of the definitions was about artistic communications in small groups. So what makes a folk group? Right now, all of us right here, we're a folk group, right? And the genre of my speech is lecture. Okay, so that is a folklore genre. We are a folk group. It doesn't mean that a community only is a folk group. It also means us. We are bound together at the moment because of we have a common desire to look at what folkloristics is. And this I would call meta-communication. Anyway, so folklore is text. And what this means is narrative. Okay, the minute I start speaking in genres. And that is something I will come to in a minute. And one more thing that you need to understand is that is so important in folklore studies is that folklore exists in variations. What does this mean? The very simple, the simplest example I can give you is that think about how many renditions and renditions of the Cinderella story or the Cinderella trope you can find in Hollywood movies. Just think about, you've got Disney, you've got Ella Enchanted, you've got like almost like I think about at least 50 renditions. But the trope of the Cinderella story, there's the wicked stepsister, the gracious fairy godmother. These are the motifs. These can be found repetitively everywhere. So there are variations. All right, and once a text, once a story, once a narrative exists in enough variations, then it becomes folklore. Okay, now, so what we do when we study folkloristics is that we study variation, we study expressive forms, we study artistic communications in small groups. That's my favorite definition. We study the genres of folklore. As respected Provisi has mentioned few. He mentioned myths and legends, but I will go on to tell you that genres of folklore are not limited to that. They are more, but the beginnings are the fairy tale, the myths, the legends, the memory, the rumor, the gossip, the proverb. All right. These, and you can go on and on and on. And not just that, you've got vernacular genres too. Then let's go and speak about expressive forms and the belief narrative. How will I tell you about the belief narrative? A belief narrative is anything that has the component of belief, and so it's called the belief narrative. But let's move on a little bit further because that is so self-explanatory. Let's problematize it. Okay, let's think a little bit more critically, and let's move on to the legend genre. Now, this is my favorite because the legend is so fluid, it is so adaptable, it can mutate so much that it resists definition, it resists categorization, and it resists like trying to, explain exactly what a legend is. But we'll move on to that immediately in a bit. Now, this idea of vernacular religion, at the moment, I think we'll skip it because it is another theory. All right. Now, whatever I'm telling you, this is post 1980s. This is this begins in the 1990s. All right. So we're moving on to the newer trends of folklore studies. Let's look at a little bit about history now. I'm going back into history to tell you what the Finnish method is all about. What they did was that they took stories from, let's say, A, and then they took another set of stories from area B, and then they compared it. So it's more of a comparative method. Then you've got the type and motive index. What is the meaning of the type and motive index? So this Arne Thompson Uther Folktale Index is where they break down folktales and they make them into these tiny little, they break folktales down to the smallest unit, and then they look at these units and then they arrange them. So it's mostly a process of categorization. So you'll find the Cinderella story trope in like hundreds of other folktales. And this will be ATU, and then the number will come. So that's what the categorization and the typologization of folktales is known as the type and motive index approach to folklore studies. And then we've got somebody very awesome, Vladimir Prop. He was a Russian folklorist, and I think that it was very cool that he did what he did at the time that he did. All right. He wrote the morphology of the folktale, and in it, he identified some, 31 functions of the hero within a given tale. Okay, so for example, he was talking about hero goes to war, hero like falls in love, then, the different functions. So he says that every story follows a linear function and it has these 31 like actions that follow it. That's the idea of the morphology of the folktale. Now, all of you have heard of the Grimm brothers, haven't you? So the Grimm brothers, what they did was they were Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm, and in 1865 they distinguished between the Märchen and the Sagen. The Märchen, as you understand, is the folktale or the fairy tale, and the Sagen, which we now understand, is the legend. So at first, the Grimm's fairy tales were looked upon as folklore, which means that somebody, they had just, it had like anonymous authorship and like it was collected from somebody. But later on, the great scandal was that Jacob and Wilhelm Grimm, they literally wrote this themselves. But this doesn't mean that it's not folklore. Okay. So that was the great scandal in the 1950s or 60s, if I'm not mistaken. The Sagen, as we know it now, is the legend. What is the legend? This is very complicated. Look, okay. Remember I told you that the folktale, it's easy to, typologize it, to break it down to units, and then, to categorize it. Problem with the legend is that, the same thing, folklorists tried to do the same thing to get this categorization with the legend. But legend defies categorization, and I'm going to tell you why. Okay, so why does it defy categorization? Now the construction of reality is different within the folktale and a legend. And in a legend, it's told a little bit more differently. For example, it's going to be like, I'm going to tell you a legend like, did you know, a friend of a friend told me that when I was walking down that particular bridge, I was walking and then I saw this lady in white, and she was like, it was the middle of the night. And I don't know if I can believe my eyes, but then, this friend of a friend told me that at that bridge, this happened. Okay. And if I'm the audience, to whom the story is being told, I would respond, "Ah, really? I also heard that somebody had, committed suicide there." So first of all, you've got readily identifiable topographic and geographic features. Then you have to understand that while the folk tale has multiple parts, the legend is mono-episodic, and it's performed as truth. And this idea of truth becomes a rhetoric within the legend telling. It's one of the most core ideas within the legend. All right, so what happens is that I am telling you a story, and both of us, we know that the story is not true, but still we tell it as if it is true. All right, believability and the rhetoric of truth is one of the core features of legend. So the use of rhetorical devices to ensure believability. So for example, the same bridge story. My friend of a friend, went there at night and saw this white figure in that bridge. The rhetorical device, okay, and then the other person, for example, the story is being told to me, I would be like, yeah, I heard, and I'm not sure whether it's true, but somebody actually committed suicide there. This is a rhetorical device. And I say, I don't know if it's true. Okay, but immediately when I actually say it, there's the questionable element of, I establish believability immediately with that, because I sound skeptical and uncertain my own self. All right, now, something that's very important that you need to understand is that legends are not told to walls. I'm not going to sit here and look at this green wall ahead of me, and I'm not going to say, wall, this is what happened. No, I'm going to say it to an audience, and this particular audience, all right, will participate. It's not spoken as in a story. Once upon a time, in a land far away, there lived a beautiful princess. There is no response to that. But once you say, hey, it happened to me. I was walking down this bridge. Really? You see, you understand. So now there is this active relationship between the legend teller and the audience. Now I'm going to move on to something that I think you've heard about, which is known as the urban legend. Okay, the urban legend, now better known as a contemporary legend, it reflects social anxieties. I'll go to a very, 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 very simple example that was stated by Gary Allen Fine in, I think, 1980s. I don't remember dates, I'm sorry. All right, so the KFC, the Kentucky Fried Rat narrative. So what happens is that this couple goes to KFC after their work, and they buy a bucket of fried chicken, and then they go to the movie, and they sit there and they eat their fried chicken. And then without them knowing, there was also a dead rat in it. And the minute, like, this woman, she got some kind of, allergic reaction, or, she was poisoned, and she was rushed to the hospital. And then she died. This is the urban legend that was circulating very widely. What does this explain about social anxiety? First of all, the rise of fast food, where, you don't have to, the social space like around the kitchen now has moved to like going to the drive-through and just buying a bucket of KFC. Intimacy within relationships is replaced by, watching a movie. So there is a new sense of anonymity. There's a new sense of aloneness that say modern life brings to us. All right, and this story can be seen as a reflection of social anxieties. This guy who looks very, very shocked in this photograph, His name is Timothy Tangerlini. He's one of the most awesome folklorists today. And it's such a pleasure to listen to his lectures, because now what he's doing is digitizing and mapping the patterns of K-pop dance moves and studying the folklorization of these dance moves. All right, so legend can be looked at. This is his definition. Okay, a traditional, mono-episodic, highly ecotypified, localized, and historicized narrative told and believable in a conversational mode. So this was the, how do you call it? This was the legend. Okay, I'll just move through. Okay, the telling, I'll just tell you that the telling of a legend can also be a highly political action. Okay, because it was narratives. I read up on this, and I cannot ensure that what I'm going to tell you is completely true. There you go. That's my rhetoric of truth. But I read up in some of the news articles where, you know, you find the Rengma and the Karbi conflict. There were narratives associated with them. All right. And the telling of these narratives furthered and fueled the conflict. So that this is how narrative works. And this is how legend telling can be a very, very political art. Okay, listen, the next, Benny, how much longer do I have?
Oh, I completely forgot. I have about 20 minutes.
Sorry?
We have about 20 minutes.
20 minutes. Oh, okay, very quickly. Tradition. Okay, it's a key concept of folkloristics. For a long time, you know, we thought that tradition and folklore go together. To an extent, that's true. What happens is that tradition, like, okay, Charles Seeger has his definition, and then you've got other definitions, but let's move on. Here's my question. Can tradition exist alongside modernity? Of course it can, because tradition is creative, right? You cannot project tradition to a time when, you know, oh my God, this tradition has happened like for centuries. Like, who began it? Somebody started it. And then, you know, because you kept doing it, you kept passing it on, you kept giving it, then it became tradition, wasn't it? So what happened is that there are great traditions and then there are little traditions, but this is a different topic altogether that I have to skip right now. So tradition versus creativity. This question, what determines the stability within tradition? And here we've got The Law of Self-Correction by Estonian folklorist Walter Anderson. And he said that if I'm going, I'm the teller, the storyteller, right? I'm telling you a narrative. I'm going to say, once upon a time in land far, far away, there were two sisters and they had a very cruel stepmother. And the audience would be like, hang on, there were two sisters and one stepsister. All right. And then there was the cruel stepmother. And be like, okay. So together with the community, this idea of correcting each other, that is one way to account for stability. Because otherwise traditions would not be, you know, passed down as like, not homogeneously, but as like in such a stable manner. Okay, there would be, of course, over time, there are accumulations, especially in oral cultures, and that I will explain to you in a minute. So you can see this Richard Bauman's idea, and then I'll tell you that I like the best when Lauri Hanko, Finnish folklorist, is no more, when he speaks about tradition, not as something that is dead, that is passed through time, but tradition as a creative process. Because all tradition is invented. All right. So next. Orality. This is something that you, Benny, you told me to speak about. And I thought about it and I thought, yes, of course. Because Northeastern India, we are not a scripted set of indigenous communities. We're not. we don't have scripts, not really, no. We've got like, okay, fine, the British came, translated the Bible, showed us the light, let's say. But then that's how, but until today, I think the spoken word is much more important than is the written word. We can say whatever we want in the written word, but when what is spoken, covenants between people, pacts that are made, those are more important. So when I speak about orality, I mean the quality of verbal communication as being one of the key points to maintaining social relationships, organizing it, and ensuring, let's say, order, social order. Okay, that is orality. Orality is something that is spoken, and the not just what is spoken, but orality is something that ensures that the spoken word is hierarchically higher. It has more meaning than what is written. Of course now, but you have to understand that we are very, very, very influenced by the Western world. And so we've got contracts which are written down. And this I call scripted tyranny. Okay, because not all what is written is set in stone. Now I'll tell you about this question of folklore genres. Folklore genres are, as I have mentioned to you, the way that stories or narratives are ordered. What is a folk tale? What is a fairy tale? What is a legend? What is a myth? What is a memorate? What is a proverb? What is a riddle? What is gossip? These are the questions. These are folklore genres as they are ordered. Okay, but then if I move one step further towards the realm of genre theory, then it'll be a different question. Genre theory is an approach to looking at verbal expressions as being resources. Okay, so genres are shared forms. And what I mean when I say that, I mean that if a narrative expresses itself in a given form, for example, if a narrative is a legend, it can also share features of a fairy tale. Okay, so genres are not fixed, they are fluid. So genres leak. Genre is the most primary. For example, let's think about speech genres. When we speak, we're speaking in genres. For example, right now, I'm speaking in the lecture genre. If I break it down, I'll find that I'm speaking about in like, how do you call it? Examples. Right now, I'm giving you examples. So that's also another genre. But then if I mix it up, and I'll say, okay, it's not this is not genre, this is something else, then it these forms get mixed up. Okay, and genre theory is a vast like body of it's a corpus of research. Okay, and it helps a lot to research folklore and folklore theory, and it's one of the most important theories that are there right now. And if I had more time, I would explain much more, but at the moment, let me race on. Now, after so much of talking, I'm going to ask you, what is folkloristics? Nobody's going to tell me. So, okay, I'll just tell you all myself. It's not just a mere projection of folklore into the past. No, folklore is alive. Folklore is right here. It's right now. You and I are creating folklore. We encounter folklore every single day. When your mom says, hey, 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 no standing on the doorway brings bad luck. That's folklore. That's a belief. And belief is a genre. Okay, so we encounter folklore every single day. Folklore is contemporary. You've got popular culture. You are surrounded by internet folklore. think about conspiracy theories, think about the most popular one right now, very, very fishy and very, very scary also, the QAnon. All right. And we cannot think about folklore as being something dead. And I'll tell you why. Now, from folklore theory, from talking about what folklore is, let me just
I think the screen has frozen, no?
Maybe internet problem also.
hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
lost you there for like 2 minutes. Can you please repeat what you said? The last 2 minutes.
Documentation and cultural preservation, which is very, very relevant to us, indigenous scholars, all right? And is very important in the context of Northeast India. Speak about Christianity. Christianity has brought about huge changes, like it is like so sudden and such a huge disconnect from the past in the Khasi context that it brings about a lot of cultural trauma also, and people don't know how to locate experiences that are, let's say, for example, supernatural, and so they interpret it through the framework of Christianity. I'll explain to you. Think about in I don't know much about Naga belief, but I have a friend and she tells me that dreams are very important, even within the Naga context. It's important because it shows a lot of, it's like a resource, it's like a knowledge carrier, all right? But dreams, and they are likened and interpreted through the framework of Joseph's dreams. So it's okay, it's legitimized, okay? Because if I'm not mistaken, evangelical Christianity it preaches a radical discontinuity with the past, all right? And what is past cannot be, what you leave behind, you cannot hold on to that. But if you have dreams, and they are like a little bit prophetic dreams, and then these dreams, if you go to refer to the Bible, and then you know that, okay, Joseph also had a dream where, they are which are prophetic in nature. So it's possible and it is legitimate within the community in order to interpret your own dreams through that framework. Although dreams in the pre-Christian Naga tradition had a different meaning. All right, so there has been a discursive shift. I'll give you another example. Khasis are like, I don't know, 83% of them are Christian converts, okay? Khasis have this very, very strong idea of what place is. Place is so important to them. But now, with the conversion to Christianity, places have been they are now limited to, let's say, the sacred space of the church. And sometimes, we've got house blessings. But you know what? But then it never really goes away. All right, this connection of the Khasi connection with place. For example, the place where accidents have happened, those places are places of great power, and people, usually avoid them at night, even if they're hardcore Christians. All right. Why? This is because of the significance of place and the place of the guardian deities in place. All right, so now what has happened is that the Catholics, they are so radically assimilative, yes. So in a place called Maubri in northern Khasi Hills, they have instituted a Catholic sacred grove. where Jesus is the guardian deity. Okay, so there has been a discursive shift from orientation, discursive shift and reorientation of perspective from the traditional Kasi point of view to the Christian point of view. I don't know if you have like gotten me completely, but I'm trying my best. Let's see what's the next slide. All right, some important folklore works, some really important folklore works. This Assamese guy, Virendranath Datta, he's really old right now. And he wrote Cultural Contours of Northeastern India. I think I have the book in my bag. And then you've got this really amazing book called Folklore of Northeastern India by Soman Sen. Then my, he supervised my PhD, Ulo Valk. Can you hear me? Benny, can you hear me?
Yes.
You're the only one I can ask.
All good, all good.
Yeah,
Sorry.
okay. Okay, cool. So then you've got Ulo Valk, who has done a lot of research on the narratives of and the supernatural in Assam. Then you've got Claire Stacey Scheid, who has done a lot of work with the Adi. And you've got me, who's trying to do more. And then, of course, in the Naga context, you've got these works that are important. And I'm very, very grateful to my friend Talilula Longchar for this list. So there's Anungla Iyer, there's Temsula Au, there's Dan Mongi Jasmine Batten, there's Esterine Kire, there's Suk Nung Pensu, there's Purtungzo Klongchar, Chubatola Iyer, Asangba Tutir, and Tiarenla Iyer. So these are the important works. Let's see. So to conclude, I will just tell you that verbal art plus expressive forms equals folklore. And here's to Taylor Swift and, generating such a absolutely amazing amount of folklore. All right, that's the end of my lecture. Yeah, I'm clapping for myself. Okay.
Thank you so
Right.
much. I mean, thank you so much, Margaret. This in the meme language, mind blown. Okay. Thank you so much for your presentation. It's an amazing presentation. It's very evocative of whatever we have read so far, and whatever we have learned. And in some ways, it's a kind of relearning as well as debunking of some of the so-called beliefs that we have, that folklore is something that is there in the fossilized past, only to be brought out today and see its relevance. We have a number of questions actually, but I really like the term scripted tyranny. I think that is your term, right? Scripted tyranny.
It's not mine. It belongs to Lydia Guzzi, but she has been advocating, why do we need script?
Yeah, because I was just thinking when you told me about this, I just realized, like, when you look at the written word, especially the Naga context, it almost feels like, if you look at the press releases, or if you look at some of, like, the writing that is emerging, in terms of, not in terms of, like, just in terms of non-fiction writing, especially, it almost feels like it's like a performance. It feels like there's a paradigm shift. Well, the spoken word is actually performative, in the sense that there's a relationship between the speaker and the spoken, right? But it feels like, it feels slightly, how should I put it? I think the word is distanced. It feels really isolating, and it feels isolated as well, the scripted word. And but it's just something that, like Walter J. Ong says, right? Secondary orality. We inhabit a world of secondary orality. And yeah, I'm so grateful to you for this. It was such a beautiful presentation, so well organized, and also learned so much, relearned so much, and unlearned so much also from your presentation. Thank you so much. We have around 15 minutes for Q&A now. If there's anybody who wants to switch on their camera and ask questions, you can do that as well. You can just raise your hand. But I think have a number of questions. I'll read it out to you. Peter Key is asking you, in the discussion of folktales and legends, where does myth fit in?
Myths are sacred stories. They're also a genre of folklore, and myths can be created. Some of the myths are very, they are connected with divinities. All right. So usually in Max Weber was the one who did a lot of work on this idea of myth, and he did a lot of work until he discredited his own self by attributing all myth to being oriented to sun worship, the sun worship. Yeah. So
Polar myths, yeah.
Yeah. So what I mean is that myths are also a genre of folklore, and myths are sacred stories and sacred narratives, and they also have their own place, but they can also have sub genres. All right. So have I answered your question?
Okay. Mona Lisa Harzarika is asking you, my question is, how can folklore be used in today's world apart from studying other cultures?
We're not studying other cultures. We're talking about finding folklore in our daily lives and actually being able to identify it. For example, if say for instance, examples work best. Okay, so in my community, there is a human deity who can be propitiated only through human blood. Okay, so the problem is that if this practice is attributed to a given family, then the whole community will come and burn their house down. All right, but us, as being aware of how folklore works, if we are able to identify that a set of practices and a set of beliefs form this idea of this demon deity worship, then we're able to, deconstruct or undo the stereotype of having a family that actually, worships this particular bloodthirsty demon. And as such, it is possible to stop like a group of, stop a mob from going and attacking, because stories are very powerful. So in everyday life, if we are able to identify, isolate, and label what is folklore and what is not, then we're able to find that, it orders social relationships and it helps us to make meaning. These are strategies for meaning making. That's how folklore helps. All right, the next one is
from Devashish. Hello, ma'am. If we want to work on folklore of a region which is different from our native culture or area, what are the points that should be kept in mind? How to overcome the linguistic and cultural differences so that our study shouldn't get restricted?
Complicated question. So to Devashish, I would say that first of all, go out into the field, and first of all, take away all your preconceived conceptual schema. All right, not preconceived notions, don't misunderstand me, but you have a concept in your mind, what you want to research. That should be the guiding point. But then the conceptual schema that you have, okay, these practices can be labeled as beliefs. All right, these kind of concepts, these units of understanding, this theoretical underpinnings and methods that we have to let them be. Then we have to go on field work. We have to also, the second part is ethics. We have to always maintain ethics during field work. And the third is that, okay, you're not familiar with the language, get a translator and make your
Network connectivity issues, I think.
We're
Okay, I'm just going to switch off my video. Margaret, are you there?
hello.
Yeah,
Can you hear me? Hi, Arkin. Hello.
we lost you for a minute there. Hello?
Yeah, I'll just,
Okay, we lost you for 1 minute.
okay.
Okay,
I
so-
just wanted to say that we are all participants in the folklore that we research. Okay, there is no such thing as objective research. What we can do is that we can become aware of our place in the research that we do, and as such, engage with reflexive fieldwork and reflexive analyses. That's what I would say. And then, okay, more questions.
Yes, how would you negotiate the affiliation of supernaturalism to folklore and folktales? From Akishi Jaka.
Okay, Akishe, I'll tell you, there's no such. I'm a demonologist. I love the supernatural. This is what I do. I research a lot of supernatural folklore, and what I do is that I love the supernatural. But you have to understand, in the context of Northeastern India, okay, this word supernatural is made up of two. It's a compound word, right? Super and natural, which means something above the natural. Okay, but do you really think in traditional cultures that has any meaning? Because say, for instance, somebody gets possessed by a deity, all right, we're like, okay, fine, that happened. Yeah, it's known as, for example, among the Karbi, there is a practice of amenchi. That means that the coming of the name, all right? So if a baby starts to behave, starts to cry, and there are certain other signs also, or a person starts to get sick, the divination is performed, and it's known that one of the ancestors is, how will I say, is reincarnated in the person, and then the names are changed. That's what cures the condition. Would you call it supernatural? Because it's culturally, it's within it's normative. You understand? It is within the culture. So I would say that I would use, for scholarly ease, I would use the term supernatural, but I would also be very aware of understanding that what is normal to cultures and how we can actually research it. Okay, so and folklore, of course, there is so much of the supernatural in folklore, but there's also folklore that has nothing to do with the supernatural.
In Chinmaran, as the speaker has mentioned, if I'm not wrong, all tradition is invented. Can the speaker please explain how traditional practice can be regarded as an invention? Good.
Oh, awesome. Okay, so how can you look at traditional practices as inventions? I would suggest a book. It's called The Invention of Tradition. It's by Eric Hobsbawm. Okay, and there he speaks about like how creativity becomes tradition. Because say, for instance, I have a gorgeous sweater. Okay, if I have this gorgeous sweater, and then this becomes something very dear to me. Okay, and then what happens is that when I die, I'm going to give this to my legacy. I'll leave it as my legacy. And then that will be passed down and passed down and passed down. Later on, you'll find this in the museum. And this will be like, this is the legacy of Clan Lingdo. Okay, so I started this. I invented it because I liked the sweater so much. And this is just an example of how traditions can be invented. I hope that I explained to you this point, but then I think you should read all The Invention of Tradition by Eric Hobsbawm. Yeah, read that.
I think I just want to add to what you have said, especially in the Naga context, when you're talking about tradition being invented, when she's talking about tradition being invented, I think that consciously and subconsciously, we are always in the process of inventing tradition, even today, right? So it's not something that is curated. It's something that you make unconsciously as well, right? So
Yes,
are there, yeah.
traditions
We
are
have,
practices. Yeah.
so you have two more questions. Is there any role of folk music in defining cultural identity from Emily and Mention?
Of course, folk music is part of folklore, folk traditions, right? And like, look what we're doing right here. And folk music can also find expression in other discursive frameworks. Also, for example, you've got fusion between reggae and hip hop is called reggaeton, and reggae is actually traditional folk music from Caribbean and Jamaica. And so this is also a way how folk music would get reframed in order to suit modern lifestyle. All right, but when it comes to cultural identity, now that's a little bit more, how do you say, problematic. So in Estonia, there are these two, there is a folk group called the Seto, and Seto singing is polyphonic singing, okay? And they are in the UNESCO Heritage Group. They have this label. So in order to project cultural identity, you can use whatever elements of folk culture that you want. And if it's folk music, then yes, go for it.
Yeah, and I also think that hybridization or this fusion music, like that, I think it's one of the evolutionary things that happen to the folklore. I think unless there is some kind of hybridization or fusion stuff happening, it becomes very difficult for so-called traditional forms of the folk song to become, like you said, to make it more to get co-opted into contemporary times, right?
Exactly.
So I think you will just have one more question, time for one more question. If I understood the point on genres of folklore properly, they are fluid. So for instance, if I heard a narrative that might have elements of both a folktale and a legend, what should we call that narrative then? Thank you.
Okay, so what happens when genres fuse? Then they go on to create new genres. Okay, but the problem is that these genres are not stable. Hello?
Yes, sorry about that.
So these genres are not stable. The ones that because they are created at the moment during the telling of a particular story. But if a genre has multiple genres embedded inside it, they can also be called belief narratives. All right. And we don't always have names for genres, but I would ask you to just reflect on vernacular genres within your own community, within your own context. Think about how genres are ordered, because in the Khasi system, we've got Purinam, Puriskam, we've got Kanatang. Okay, and these are all, they have different explanations what they are. So it's the same.
Yeah, I mean, I think even in the Naga context, it feels like the genres get blurred. You know, you really can't identify one single genre because it feels that it's an amalgamation of belief, practices, and narratives just coming together, right? So especially in the Naga context. So yeah, so I think we have just enough. We have exceeded the time, but thank you so much, Margaret, and thank you everyone for being so forthcoming and engaging like this in this manner. Thank you so much, Margaret. I hope that we will again meet in the future, and I'm definitely anytime you are in India, you know that you're welcome always to Kohima. Thank you so much. We'll go to the next speaker for today. Sir, are you there? Okay, with this, we'll go to the next speaker today. The next speaker is Sir D.S. Teron, Dharam Singh Teron. Sir is a graduate in history from the Diphru Government College. He joined the Karbi Youth Festival 4 years after it began in 1974, which influenced him to become an activist from cultural fields to politics as the youth movement transformed into a powerful grassroots mobilization for Karbi autonomy from 1986. In 2007, he helped found the Karbi Young Writers Guild with a handful of young and aspiring writers, which led to the publication of the 4 volumes of Karbi Studies series of Memories, Myths, Metaphors, 2018 and 2012, Reclaiming the Ancestors' Voices in 2011, Folktales from the Fringe in 2012, and In Search of the Drongo and Other Stories in 2014. In 2015, he founded the Center for Karbi Studies to continue the effort of writing back as assertion of Karbi identity and contribute to indigenous studies. In 2017 and 2018, he collaborated with Dr. Michael Hennis from Arctic University, Tromsø, Norway, and some of us might know him from the Kohima Institute, in recording and transcribing the 32-hour-long oral epic of Kacharhe Alun, Funeral Lament, as part of ongoing efforts to document the vanishing Karbi folklore and oral tradition. Recently, Sir has co-edited with Dr. Wuli Dhanaraju of Assam University Dipu campus on a book called Karbi History Past and Present in 2020. And Sir has an extensive field work experience, and I'm sure I'm really looking forward to Sir's presentation, because I'm sure all of us, especially those who are actively engaged in field work, will learn so much more from Sir's experience. Sir, please take the stage.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Yanbeni. First of all, let me thank Pro Vice Chancellor, Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor A.K. Sharma, and Chairperson Imli Anla, and Nagaland University Center for Naga Tribal Language Studies. Thank you for having me. And when Benny contacted me, I told her that I don't belong to any particular discipline, and I'm a completely independent researcher, if I can claim to be a researcher, because I'm still an activist. And in my intro, I have described myself, or I would like to describe myself as an activist, because I'm not trained in any discipline, but the years of my activism with the Karbi Youth Festival, and also later on, which transformed it to a very powerful political movement for about 4 or 5 years, which shaped me actually. And then now I'm not in active politics, or I'm not in partisan politics. In fact, writing has taken up that space, that energy, that kind of motivation to move along. So thank you, Margaret, for actually taking up all the theoretical jungle. I'm not very much acquainted with so many theoretical stuff. So I will be only sharing the kind of experiences that I have had, and then what motivated me to actually taking up writing in my own way, because writing is still a very, very difficult thing. And then now in this modern world, unless we write, nobody cares. And then nobody, actually, we don't do justice to what we have been doing or what we are going through, unless we keep them recorded in the form of writing. Okay, so I have some slides. Let me share the slides here. Okay, I call this presentations fomentation and indigenous initiative field experience from Karbi Anglong. So it's my layman's experience, you can say, or and then I'm not so much actually worried about what experts have been talking about in terms of theories and things like that. But there are certain things which I like and then which actually reflects the kind of work that I do. So here I'm quoting Y.M. Solokov, that famous Russian folklorist. So folklore is an echo of the past, which is a vigorous voice of the present and a reflection and a weapon of class struggle. So I think it suits the kind of work that I do, because whether we agree or not, this struggle is always going on, and then our voices are being suppressed in so many different ways. And then as the discussion moves on, we will also talk a little bit about how that intellectual racism or academic racism actually works in a way to suppress our voices, and then whatever kind of representation or presence that we have are always thought to be negated, even in this present situation that we are talking. And I also like this, that Alan Dundes had, talked about that since time immemorial, some individuals have been endlessly fascinated by folk songs, folk tales, children's games, and the like. In nearly every corner of the globe, one can find, even to this day, dedicated amateurs, antiquarians, and local historians who, as a hobby and a matter of course, faithfully record the folklore of their area. I think, in my own way, I've been trying to do this, and nobody had asked me to do this, or I don't have that official tag to actually claim any kind of status. But then, as I'm trying to be nothing more than only an activist, and then whatever I write, or whatever I speak, the listeners can take it with a pinch of, I could manage to confound you, and also confuse you, and also challenge you because I don't belong to any discipline. So I like this, what Dundes had said. Soul of a people was articulated in that people's folk songs. So I am always going after the stories which are kept alive in songs, and then in spite of so much of modernity, going into our everyday lives in all corners of the world, even in the most interior parts, you will always find mobile connectivity. So modernity has invaded into our daily lives in such a big way. But in spite of that, and in spite of orality dying everywhere, I think somewhere the Karbis can still be proud of, or I at least see that glimmer of hope that somewhere there is still hope for whoever is actually passionate about preserving, documenting, and also interpreting, and then keeping all these things for posterity, because the Karbi orality somehow it is still alive. And these are the things that which have kept me motivated. And Jacob and William Grimm, these two brothers, if they can be, credited for having started what is folkloristics today, I think we all have been doing this. I think it's a very big thing to claim, but then as we go ahead, we will talk about this, because it started like that, even for me, and then for many illustrious, I should say folklorists in Karbi sense, they have done exactly like that. And then because folklore studies or documentation of folklore for me has always been, you know, mm, have been influenced by, that nationalistic sentiment. So I think it's nothing different even for us. So when I was preparing for this talk, I was rapidly going through what is there in the internet, and then so I found Daniel J. Crowley's observation, which he made in 1997, and then I think nothing has changed very dramatically, because there are very few institutions which are actually devoted to folklore studies in Northeast India. There are, I think, yeah, there are big names, and I think a lot of works have been done. If you look at the sheer number of works one can find in the internet. But the question is, how much of these actually reflect the soul of the people, of the people who actually these voluminous works seek to represent. So there are these universities, and then some government-sponsored organizations like Abilak in Guwahati. Then here, actually, Crowley didn't mention Tribal Research Institute. Yeah, it was instituted in 1963, and its headquarters was in was in Shillong. I think this was there in all the states. But after whatever happened, so many different tribal communities, they have, they have their own states now, and then they have, their own departments to look after this kind of studies. And then in the website, in the official website of the Tribal Research Institute, they still claim that there is an office in Difu, the headquarters of Karbi Anglong, but I have made few inquiries with the DC and then other people in the council, Karbi Anglong Autonomous Council. They don't know anything about it. And I think this research office called District Research Office in Difu had long been withdrawn. It's not existent in any shape here. So these are the things that actually had gone into the, documentation or, interpretation of, tribal stories, myths, and legends. And these are the list of works which have been done by the Tribal Research Institute in, its head office is now in Guwahati. It was shifted from Shillong after Meghalaya was created into a new state, tribal state. And I think there are a lot of, as I have said, there are a lot of works done by them. And then here, there is a work prominent, I should say, by one B.N. Bordoloi, who was, I think, the director of Tribal Research Institute in Guwahati. So this gentleman, he published a work on Karbi funeral festival called Chomangkan in 1982. And then he was also one of the authors of Tribes of Assam. There are, there's a series of this volume called Tribes of Assam. So there were different tribes, and then for each volume dedicated to different tribes. And then one in the first volume, there is something about Karbi. So in bits and pieces, you will find, work like that. But then we will talk about what B.N. Bordoloi had done. But there are voluminous kind of work they do, a lot of things, economy, politics, culture, and also folklore. And I think this is also very, important observation by Crowley. So he had gone through all this literature, and then he has this idea that the overview of literature shows a clear and consistent differentiation in the minds of the scholars between the between the folklore of the tribal peoples and Assamese mainstream, understandable in view of the deep differences between the ancient literate Sanskritic tradition with the longest written record of myths and tales on earth and a never previously recorded tribal lore. This is also very important observation. Then he also observed that these essays proved all the more important when interviews with the authors and other folklore scholars brought to light the curious fact that, except for one tribal, all the folklorists I met or read are not only Assamese, but also Brahmins, reflecting both the lack of social mobility innate in Hindu societies and the domination of Indian academic by the priestly caste. I think it's still true. And that it should be pointed out once more that folklore in India and elsewhere in Asia and Africa is all too often synonymous with ethnography, not so much the culture of illiterates in a literate society as in Europe and America, but of traditionalist Hindu, Buddhist, and Muslims, as well as tribal facing globalization. Different people may have different opinions about this, but the domination of the academia by a certain class. Here, Mr. Crowley had been very, very direct. So he has his own opinions, and then how, in particularly in the marginalized context of the Karbis in Assam, and also there are other tribal communities who are much more marginalized than the Karbis, and there are many within Assam and within Karbi Anglong. So this is, I think, pathetically very true. Then I'm talking about how tribal studies, or tribal studies should basically start from folklore studies. So this has little, I mean, something to cheer us up in a very, very limited way, though. The Assam University campus of Difu was set up in 2007, 13 years after Assam University was established in Act of Parliament in 94. And something to cheer about in Karbi context, of course. After the campus was set up, it has produced 16 PhD scholars since 2007 to 2020, out of the 30 odd number of Karbi scholars, which was only 4 from 1990 to 2012. So one can guess the kind of scholarly, elements or scholarly section, which is very, very painfully, slowly growing. And then we still have a lot of things to do. And then there are expectations, hopes, placed on them, but we don't know what, how that will come into, a reality. So we have this Assam University. I have some observations. A few years ago, I wrote about how local scholars, they are struggling with, carrying out research works for their PhDs when it comes to, choosing topics. So when I wrote about it, there were some murmurs in the university, in Assam University Difu campus. So, I mean, they didn't expect this kind of reaction, that some people here, they're actually, keeping an eye on what is happening in, that kind of academic space. I'm like a, bull in a China shop. So I was trying to destroy that kind of, that academic boundary. Here I'm quoting Robert Staple, which is, I think, yeah, the same thing. I can see half of it, but anyway, I'll try to read it. white professors tend to be most interested in students who will adopt or already share, the research interests. That is rarely true. This is rarely true for most Black graduate students. In fact, it is most problematic when the time comes to select a dissertation topic. Frequently, Black graduate student picks up a subject related to their culture and experience, a subject that the white faculty members may know nothing about, care little about, and regards as being of little scholarly value. Hence, it is understandable that Black graduate students require a longer time to complete their degrees than their white cohorts. So this is, I think, very similar, it's not very different here in our context. So many students, because the faculty members, the guides, they have very little understanding of local realities, local cultures. So they will always try to be there in their own comfort zone, and they don't want to go out, do research, and then create new knowledge system. So they will ask of the students if they have texts, and then if they don't have texts, they cannot go ahead with the research, and then so some kind of imposition takes place here, and then I think it is still going on. So we have had a good number of PhDs of late, but I don't know how much effective these PhDs will be, because this is the kind of atmosphere that we have. And that's the reason why actually I look back to this person in your screen. You can see this old man. He died in 1997, and then he wrote more than 20 books, and he never went to any school. And then he taught himself writing in English and writing in Karbi, and then he started writing in Assamese, because that was, the tradition then. And then he produced some of the most, you can say very important books on Karbi culture, Karbi philosophy, Karbi worldviews, and then I think there are more than 20 manuscripts which he had left behind, and then some relatives of his are trying to publish them. So he started publishing books since 1937. So it was 10 years before, 10 or 11 years before the British finally left. So he started collecting songs and legends, folk tales, and also many historical tales and songs. So before him, there was maybe only one Karbi writer during the who was trained by the missionaries. So other than him, he is the most prolific writer, and then who is rightly regarded as father of Karbi folklore. And then his books are still read, his books are reprinted, and then he is a revered figure. So these are the books that he had written. These are the original books, and then now we have these books in Roman script. And then the other person is Sir Lunsetimung. He is still alive, and he is nearly 80, and then he's active, and then he is always so passionate, and then he talks about culture, he writes about culture, and then he is very active. And then he has also published more than 15 books. These are some of the titles that he had published. And then we have a literary organization, Kalbi Lamera Mai, which was established in 1966, and then it has more than 500 titles.
Class is going on,
no? About 20 or 30 odd writers, old and new. Some are gone, but there are old elderly people like Lunse Timong who are still in the business of writing. And then these are, some of the publications from Karbila Mera Mai. And then there are also new organizations like Jambili Literary Foundation. So these organizations are actually trying to revive writing and also collection of stories, songs, and folk tales. And then these are the kind of works that that one can find. And in spite of that, there's a serious crisis which is facing the Karbis. The Karbila Maramai, as I said, it has more than 500 titles, but there's no very academic writing, very few scholarly works on Karbis so far. And then published works are not used in any curriculum. Karbi language is not regularly taught in schools. Translation works from other languages are very, very few, and not many writers. And we understand that the British started collecting songs and then creating written documents for different communities, different tribes, different cultures in the Northeast. And it was not different for Karbis either. And some of the important works, however, were done by the colonial authors. And then their observations are, very, because it was written by colonial authors. So the colonial tones and, the colonial kind of understanding of everything of the tribes can be found here. So I'll move on to the next slide. So I often go to this code by one Mr. Gunaviram Barua, who is hailed as a pioneer in historiography, Assamese historiography. And this book was published, I think, in 1885, and it had been republished several times. And this edition is from the 2003 publication of Assam Publication Board. So here, the Assamese historian, he had called Karbis the monkeys. So Karbis are monkeys. He used a Sanskrit term for this. He used Sakhamrig or Morkot. And then he had also mentioned about the word Karbi. He knew about the word Karbi. These people, they call themselves Karbi. But he also derives this from Sanskrit root called Kroibat. So it's strange. So we cannot exist, or we cannot be here as people in our own term, but we have to have some kind of connection with the mainland, so-called mainland, or so-called mainstream dominant societies. So we exist because of them. We cannot exist on our own terms. So Mikir had never been accepted by Karbis. It was given to us by the Assamese. So there are so many references we can give. But then this historian, he preferred to go back to a Sanskrit root, Sakhamrik which means monkey. So Karbis were nothing but monkeys for him. Here, this is Sakamrik, a descript, so what is the meaning of Sakamrik? One can go to internet and find out. Then we have talked about this Bien Bordeloi who wrote Chomankan. So we haven't written anything about us ourselves. So some people are doing this for us. So when some other people are doing for us, then we shouldn't be also complaining, because we are not doing anything of substance by ourselves. So we leave them to people like Bien Bordeloi. So many misrepresentations and so many culturally inappropriate things that he had written in his book. So these are some of the instances you can find if one goes to that book. And then anybody who wants to know something about Kirby will definitely, or in the sense that since we are not writing ourselves, so they will have to go to those books and then we'll find this kind of information. And then there's this book called Sociology of the Karbis. It's written by a professor. He was HOD of Political Science of Haflong Government College. And it's very strange. He was also in Difu for a number of years before moving on to Haflong College. So in his view, it is strongly practical in social organization. So he finds Karbi society very, very patriarchal. And it's there's no society more male-dominated than the Karbis. So one can understand the kind of understanding that he has. Women do not wear parda. I don't know where that parda has come from. And then he has talked about the funeral festival without, maybe, I don't know how many festivals he had been witness to. There are all these different kinds of, very strange kind of interpretations.
So sorry to interject.
Then again,
sorry to interject. You have around 10 minutes.
All right. Yeah,
7 minutes.
All right. So this is the Folklore of Assam by Jogesh Das. It's published by National Book Trust. So these are all, you will find all these kind of misrepresentations in all, I should say all, because any book or any writing that you find in Google on Karbi, you will have to accept them with a huge, kind of yeah, you'll have many questions. Why are they writing like this? And then why are they circulating the same kind of information again and again? Have we remained static, or have their understanding about us remained static? Then Margaret was also talking about Birendranath Datta. He is a revered name. But so far as his writing about Karbis are concerned, are all, doesn't differ much from what I have been talking about. So it's the same kind of, repetitive kind of thing. Maybe this book was, a compilation of his old writings, maybe 30, 40 years ago, and then he forgot to update them. And so you will find all these kind of representations, because we didn't write about them. So they are free to write, and they have been doing that. And so it started in 2006. This is this gentleman. Here are two people who had influenced me a lot. One is Thomas Kaiser, who came to actually Nagaland, but he was waiting for his inner line permit. So he stayed in Difu. We came in touch, and then we started collecting Karbi songs, and we met this gentleman. In the screen, he's Long Sing Bey. He is a prolific singer, and he is a storyteller. So in the last, down the line, maybe 40 years, I've known him, and then we have been collecting many, many songs through him. And then these are some of the scenes we were together with Thomas, and when we were collecting songs from different people in Difu, around Difu. And out of that, actually, I met Thomas and Longsing in 2006, and then in 2007 we formed the Karbi Young Writers Guild, and in 2008 the Karbi Studies series, the attempt started, and then from 2008 till 2014 we managed to bring out 4 Karbi Studies series. So these are some of the images. And then in 2017, Michael Hennis, I think you might all know him. He was associated with the Kohima Institute, and through him and also through some good friends in Nagaland, I was also invited to Hatun lectures as many times as Hatun lecture had been there. So, we managed to actually document a 32-hour long oral epic, Karbi oral epic, which is sung by one single person, non-stop, and then illiterate. So, in the sense that they never went to school, they don't, they cannot read, they cannot write, but they're excellent, storytellers. And then, they can go on and on and on. If you have enough batteries, and if you have enough patience, and if you have enough energy to sit with them, they can go on and on and on. And then this lady, we have been going through, this unique experience for maybe 15 days, because we had to take, break for about 1 week in between. We were tired, but this old lady was not tired, and Michael and some of our colleagues. And then this is the old lady. She is 80 plus, but she's still very energetic, and she is always ready to give whatever she knows. And then this is a photograph taken by Michael. And then she was, you can, the viewer can, make different meanings out of this photograph. So she was trying to tell me many things, and I was also asking her many things. So it was raining, so there was no proper kind of house where we could, proper kind of studio where we could do the recording. So we used this gypsy as our makeshift studio. So the photograph was taken by Michael Hennis. So it was on 26th August 2017. And then I've been meeting all these people in rural areas, meeting different people. And then through my political, exposure or my political activism, I had met so many different kind of people. And then, they have been also, helping in the sense that now at least you don't have to actually, go and introduce yourself, who you are, and then because sharing knowledge is a very, very intimate kind of thing. And then unless you have developed that kind of intimacy, sharing knowledge becomes very, very, difficult and also time taking. So because of my association in the movement, in the struggle, so I had, I think, very, easy access now to people who are there still to share their oral, stories, verses, things like that. So this photograph was taken, I think, about 10 years ago. These are, these are people who, I think, exclusive people who, knew, that erotic genre. I think Margaret can also, relate some instances when we were doing a videography of a live session of dance with erotic songs sung by these people. And then suddenly the young girls who understood, those explicit kind of songs, they started running helter-skelter because they were so explicit. So, but then this is actually almost dead. So we managed to capture some of the, live recordings. And then this is the kind of stuff that I do. this person is traditional healer, and the photograph of the old lady in the photograph on the top, she is still an believer of old traditional Karbi religion, but then she is invited to Christian funeral services to sing Kacharhe. So she is a traditional Karbi believer, and then also she's invited to a Christian funeral to sing Kacharhe. So this is something strange. I never imagined that this kind of practice is still going on, because those who had become Christians, they they feel a need of inviting Dutch singers to sing these long funeral songs in honor of the people who had died. So she is still alive. She is also about 75, and there are still some people who belong to her class. And here we have tried to bring in some of the old elderly people who are actually keeper of the traditional knowledge. So these are the people. Michael was also invited in the Assam University in one of the university seminars, and Dr. Debasri Dattari, and then Dr. Fernandez, and then some, friends are here. So we had tried to actually bring them and then give them our own way of, uh, crediting them for what they're doing, because it's very rare that our university system is very complicated, and then I think it's time that we need to see outside the university walls and then welcome these people who actually are the keeper of knowledge. And this is the kind of thing that I do. I maybe in a year, maybe I travel around for about 3 months, meeting them, taking photographs, taking videographs, and also recording their songs, and also, with my small team, document those songs, translate them, and then making them ready for publication at a future date. Yeah. So I think briefly, this is what I prepared for this lecture, and this is all I wanted to share. There are many things, but then, of course, thank you for your time. Thank you for listening, and I hope I didn't waste your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for showing us, the kind of work that you have done alongside your activism. It's quite an epic tome, I must say. You have really done a lot of work, and I'm sure the Karbi community considers you one of their biggest assets. And also at the same time, thank you, sir, for showing us how folklore can be used in counter-hegemonic ways to assert one's tribal identity, one's cultural identity. Sir, I just want to ask you some few things. I was very interested in what you were talking about when you were documenting the oral epic, and you were saying that I wanted to know more actually about that. You said that there was the 32-hour recording of that particular lamentation song, right, sir? So I was wondering, is this song still being sung in the context of its in the context in which it's supposed to be sung, or is it that is it quite common even till today, or is there like a smaller more shorter scripted version of the same? And also I wanted to know in the scripting, so you have done a lot of work in terms of documentation, right? So I wanted to know, like, how much of oral narratives of whatever, how much has been distorted in the writing process, in the scripting process, and distorted, or maybe because any writing process I feel that it incorporates a kind of selective amalgamation where something is, picked out and something is left out. Invariably it happens. Because I've seen it happening even in the Naga context, where the British missionaries, when they were collecting their data, of the Naga tribes, what happened was, in an effort to kind of, bring together the massive amount of data, they invariably removed, or was, I think the word will be selective amalgamation was there. So you have selective. It was a book scripting or documentation invariably means a kind of curating, right? So you curate certain things, so and then you leave out certain things. So in your experience of documenting Karbi folklore, how much do you think has been distorted in the process? Or, I mean, distorted is a very strong word, but how much has been left out in the process, of making it more streamlined, like that? That is one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. If I got your point right, the first thing that I see is that not many, written things are there. Not these oral verses that we have. And orality, as I said, is still alive, though maybe this is the last generation that we are seeing. And not many oral verses have been documented. But whatever have been documented, yes, the understanding of the people who are actually documenting them and the persons who actually rendered them to, that recording, I think there is always a gap.
There's always a gap.
There is always a gap, as you have said. It may not actually be distorting or something like that, but the context is changed, so they want to see in the present day context the people who are actually doing the documentation. So even on a few books that are there on oral verses, for example, this Kachar Heirloom, the lament song.
Yeah.
There are 2-3 books. I think there are these issues that you have raised. And yes, number 2, the Christian missionaries didn't do that kind of documentation of songs or things like that, or they didn't do like they did in Nagaland. They're banning this practice or that practice. Don't do that. Don't do this, or banning or things like that. In Karbi areas, there were not so much of missionary concentration. Only few missionaries, they came and they stayed for maybe a few years. They left, so they didn't have that kind of missionary presence in Karbi areas during the missionary heyday. And then in that way they didn't do the kind of harm that they did to various tribal societies, including the Nagas. Yes.
Sir, so I was just before we go into the questions for you. Also, I wanted to know, when you were documenting this folk epic, were there is there any like oral formulaic method that the singer is using, or is it just is it there a certain? I think Margaret also may be able to answer that. So I'm just wondering if there's any particular formula that she uses to remember 32 hours of singing. So does she use anything like that?
Yeah, I think they seem to follow certain. Yeah, if you can put it into some kind of oral formulaic thing, Albert Lord and all that, I think Maggie will be better place to
okay, she's saying yes.
give us that theoretical insight. But yes, one is that Karbis, they have different rhyme patterns. The same rhyme patterns maybe, but there are different names. Maybe basically there are maybe 3 or 4 rhyme patterns, but they are known by different.
Is there a meter that is used like in English you have the
yes, they follow a very straight rhyme pattern, and then there are 3 or 4 very prominent rhyme patterns, and then
Okay.
I think there are more than 20 rhyme patterns.
So can we
I
access
could
it?
say there are 20 names of different rhyme patterns.
Oh,
So an expert will move from one rhyme pattern to another rhyme pattern, and then
wow.
one story, certain stories, one particular singer will be very comfortable, singing, and then an expert will move from one rhyme pattern to the other with ease, without fumbling for words. So the persons that I have met, elderly people, including the Kacharhepi singer Kasang Teron P. So she doesn't find any problem. So she moves from one rhyme pattern to the next, as if it's like her
Effortless.
bread and butter. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. We have a question from Debashri Dattare. She is saying that thank you, Margaret and DST sir. Was wondering if you could share your inputs on how the COVID-19 situation impacts the methodological concerns of the folklorists in the field. More importantly, how do you think the trajectory of diverse folklore traditions has changed or would change in this context? This is Dr. Debashri Dattare from Jadavpur University.
Okay, Maggie should take it up first because it's theoretical, and then the rest maybe we can share.
Come on, Uncle, you do field work just like I do. So of course we both can answer this. Like it's nothing to do with theory. It's just that a lot of people now, Debashri, to respond to you, like a lot of people, as I have encountered, they use a lot of online methods. Like a lot of people are on Facebook and there's telephone connectivity, and so of course COVID would impact our fieldwork methods. And so at least for now, the thing is that I can always contact my informants through the phone, or even using Facebook as a media in order to facilitate a kind of a research. Of course, it never replaces like ethnographic fieldwork where you go there and build a rapport, but it is a poor substitute. And I don't know about trajectory, but I think that at the moment it's the only way. But I don't know, what do you think, Uncle? Uncle Teron, what do you think?
Yes, I think for me, yes, I'm speaking about the practical problems. One problem is, yes, moving and meeting people is becoming difficult. People cannot come to the town, and then people come if they are forced to come because of this pandemic. Otherwise, they don't come, and then we have to go. And then they are skeptic about accepting people from outside because of this COVID crisis. So that is a practical problem for us. And then it's difficult to move around, meeting people, and then documenting, those stories. And yes, other thing is that, because of this pandemic, maybe we are, meeting in this kind of virtual platform where actually we don't, unless, um, we have some other personal issues, we can always meet. From different parts of the globe, we can meet, we can interact, we can discuss. So I think this is also a positive side of this crisis.
True. Like Margaret has said, this will also be part of like a pandemic folklore, I guess.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. There's another question by Peter Key. He's asking, how can university innovate to participate in the documentation of oral tradition?
Yeah, I think there are individuals in the universities, because university, one has to understand, as I understand, it is a system. And then unless somebody, adventurous, somebody who are brave enough to look beyond the, the walls created by the university system, can always go to, people outside. There are knowledge keepers outside, and then actually without them, the university system will be poorer. And then I think for the good of the university system to actually open the doors and then have this kind of interaction with non-institutional and then non-official, so-called non-scholar, uh, people who can always be part of the knowledge generation drive, knowledge generation campaign. So one has to understand that. Otherwise, university is, as I understand, university is very cramped. University, it's very, as I see here, it's it is isolating. It is isolating itself, in fact. So they have to come out of this isolation.
Yeah, if I may add to that, I think one of the basic reasons why one of the basic reasons is that I feel that academic knowledge or academic information, academic analysis has become so, it's become so lexically and linguistically so Western and so overpowering that the very language that academies are using are not accessible to especially the subaltern people. Whom especially, that's what I find deeply problematic. So you're talking about, all these liberal methods, you're talking about this and that, like so many methodologies and so many approaches, but then, when it comes to practical groundwork or how it applies, it's very far-fetched, because even the people we are, like being a native scholar, if I'm going to use the language that I'm using in my academic writing or in my scholarly work, people are not going to understand that kind of perspective. So I think that there is a need to really decolonize ourselves from the perspectives that we hold as well, and see folklore from the perspective of the folk. So until then, we will just be regurgitating the same thing. I feel like regurgitating like the what the colonizers have been doing. So there's always a danger, So I think that we have to also. This is just my opinion, of course. Yeah.
Yes, decolonize is what we have to do, and then it has to start from people like us. We shouldn't depend only on the university system, because university is university. It runs on its own
Yeah, exactly.
system.
Exactly.
And there has to be some kind of effort from brave people from within the university walls to actually see this. And then also people like us, activists.
Yes, and I think that is also, it's also a combination of the other
Both.
stakeholders like
Yes,
NGOs and
exactly.
organizations and government departments and projects, things like that. So I think it's
Exactly.
there are other stakeholders as well, and I think each of the stakeholders play a very important role in furthering the study or furthering the documentation of folklore. Not only the academics, I think in fact, when we rely solely on academics, it becomes very very heavy. So
Exactly.
one more question, sir. Kaling is sorry, there are two questions. Ampu Terangpi will go quickly. Sir, can there be can it be possible to write academy on KLA work? Then how will it start?
Hello, Ampu. Thank you for attending. I think you are the only Kirby attending. So we understand the problem here. So we can share this anytime. But yes, you are doing your PhD, and then I think your PhD can also focus on this kind of work. Otherwise, who will work on this? And then we cannot go on blaming people who are writing this or that negative stuff, stereotyping. We have to actually generate this work from us. Native scholars have to do that. And then, as Jan Benny was saying, that this decolonization can start only when we start working on our own. So I think, yes, our scholars or people who are passionate about writing should start working on that. Yeah, we are not getting paid for that, but we'll have to do.
Okay, sir. Kaling is asking you, how do the Karbi oral epic talked about in a nutshell. How many versions and variations have you come across from Kaling?
Okay, Kaling. Tol, I forgot his name, but I think I remember him. Okay, hello Kaling. Thank you for your question. What do the Kirby Oral Epic talk about in a nutshell? How many versions of variations have you come across? Actually, I'm talking only about this funeral epic. There are other epics. I mean, in terms of the length, this funeral epic is the longest. It's 32 hours for this version, and I think there can be even longer version. So, but then, okay, approximately 30 hours or 32 hours. This is a general kind of length for Karbi funeral epic. There are many, and then it's a cycle of songs. There are so many songs inside that funeral epic. So it has become an epic because it talks about how this journey of the soul. The journey of the soul is described here in detail, and then how many places the soul will encounter, big rivers and big mountains and lonely places and windy places, and one has to cross these and that. So I have read little about the journey of the soul, this phenomena by British anthropologist Stuart Blackburn, who worked with nieces in Arunachal Pradesh. So he was also talking about the journey of the soul, and then how actually those places which are mentioned in the funeral epic in some cultures in Arunachal, they are actually identifiable with the present day locations. So he was suggesting that journey of the soul is actually going back to the place where the migration started. So I think even in Karbi experience, from whatever I have seen by the transcription of these texts of this recent work that we had documented, even there, yes, it gives you an idea of how the Karbis migrated, from where they came, and then that's why Karbi euphemism, the other words for death, is going back to the village. So when a death occurs, a very respectful way of suggesting that death has occurred, we say that yes, this person has gone back to his village. So we never say has gone to hell or heaven. There's no such concept in Karbi. So I think it also suggests that yes, some parts of the narratives in the oral epic, funeral epic, also talks about the migration, and also there are so many different aspects where Karbi society in that period, and how the whole funeral system is organized, and then how it is done, and how it has survived, and what are the cultural, economic, and philosophical things involved. So all these things one can understand by going thoroughly the text. So this is only one form of oral epic. There are others, but then so far as this epic is concerned, I think in short, this is also it explains or it describes the Karbi way of life. It also gives you an idea of Karbi philosophy of life and death, and regeneration. So basically, it is this from what this text I understood.
Sir, how many lines is this epic?
Hello?
So how many lines is this epic?
I think I will not give you the lines because there are more than 1,000 pages.
Oh, wow. Right.
So it's big.
Yeah, it's big.
It's only, without, interlinear transliteration.
Okay.
So with interlinear translation, it may cross maybe 3,000.
Wow.
So it's huge. So Ompu was suggesting that, yes, how can we proceed with the works that Karbil Amai had done? So I think this one work will take me maybe a lifetime. So thanks to Michael Hennis, who was also, who was the key person to have, initiated this. But the, transcription, transliteration, interpretation, all these things will come upon us. The
Sir, there's
people
just
from
one. Sorry to interject, sir.
all
There's
right.
just one question, last one. The Jan Seyfried is asking, is there any plan to make a book out of that or a series? Very interesting.
Hi, Jan. Thank you for attending. Yes, we definitely have a plan. And then, this 1,000 odd pages have already been transcribed, and transliteration is also almost done. Now, putting that into a book form is a big challenge. Maybe that will take about 2 years to finish in my, in my pace of working. So hopefully, maybe in 2 years' time, we will be able to see that epic in a book form.
All right. I guess if there are no questions, I'd just like to summarize. So thank you everyone for attending this session. We had two very engaging and extremely, well organized and very insightful presentations. I've learned so much today about both theoretical models, theoretical paradigms, as well as on the field work, hands-on, experienced perspective. So thank you to the two speakers for your time. It's really a privilege and honor to have you guys here, especially during this pandemic. I hope that in the future, very soon, maybe once this COVID situation ends, we will be able to meet in person, and maybe we can collaborate on a workshop or something like that, because God knows we really need perspectives on how to study folklore and how to study Naga folklore away from the usual paradigms. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us. It has really helped. I'm sure it has helped many of us to debunk some of our previous preconceived notions about folklore and what constitutes folklore. And the very fact that Margaret has pointed out, folklore is not something that is, dead. It's something that is alive. It's still there. It's something that is continuously evolving. So I just want to thank you today. And with this, I would like to hand over the session to the chairperson. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Yanbini, for handling the session right on time. So yes, we have had an invigorating and quite a learning and enriching session. And thank you to both the speakers. And sir, you said that while introducing yourself, you said that you are not expert in this field or any of this field, but I very much say that you are definitely one. So, and as Yanbini rightly pointed, you are an asset to the community of Kabi, and people like you are very much needed in every tribal community. Your work is not just for the community, but a treasure in the academia. And the seed of folklore study has already been sown. So now it is the turn of the like-minded people to disseminate the knowledge further. And the talks from both speakers has opened up a panorama of folklore study, which is beyond our perception. So thank you once again. And on that note, I would now call upon Dr. Bijan to give the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Chair Lady, Dr. Imlela Hemsen. So, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Pardesi Lan, respected Pro Vice Chancellor, A.K. Mishra, our most valued invited speakers, Dr. Margaret and Dr. D.S. Teron, ladies and gentlemen, it's my privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks on this occasion. So I, on behalf of Center for Naga Tribal Language Studies, Nagaland University Kohima campus, would like to thank all the people who have made to happen this event. In the part and percent, they have contributed to make this event happening. So let me again thank our Pro Vice Chancellor once again, Professor Pardesilan, for allowing us, for giving the opportunity to organize, to host this meaningful and one of the important aspect of culture, that is the folklore. Now, moving on, I would like to thank our two most valued invited speaker, Dr. Margaret. And yeah, before I came to Dr. Teron, I would like to highlight some of the points that has been pointed out rightly by the Dr. Margaret. Yes, in most of the, in almost all, I think, in the communities, I'm not a folklorist, and I don't have any idea about folklore also, but it was really an engaging talk that you have presented today, this evening. So I really enjoyed, and even the other participants, I hope so. So the interpretation of dream in other communities, the same happens in my community also. In some of your talks, at some of the points you have mentioned about the possession of some deity or some witch or whatever, what we call the supernatural powers. That is really interested, to hear to you. Thank you very much once again, Margaret, for accepting our invitation. Thank you very much. And Dr. Moving on, Dr. D.S. Teron, we are very delighted to you, sir, to listen to you also. And you prefer yourself to define as the activist, apart from whatever called expert or this and that. And you have rightly pointed out even also to go or to select a PhD topic for folkloristic or for the folklore, it should, the scholar or the aspirants should look forward the ground reality also. That you have rightly pointed out the situation over there at the Assam University Thimphu campus. And we are very delighted to hear from you a comprehensive representation on Karvi language as well as the status of Karvi folk literature. I do not know whether it's a right term to call folk literature or the folklore. I do apologize for that if I have made any mistakes. Thank you very much for that. And the most valued one, our participants from India as well as from other corners of the globe. We are really delighted to have you to this event. Without you guys, the program may not be very meaningful. Thank you very much for attending this program, and we look forward you all to attend in the future upcoming program hosted by the Center for Naga Tribal Language Studies, Nagaland University. So please be in touch with the center. We are hopefully coming up with some events in the future, near future also. Thank you very much for that. And last but not the least, I would like to give a big thanks to the Zoom. Without it, it may not be possible, almost may not be possible to have this kind of program, to see each other where we are sitting at the different corners of the world. And the different service providers who are making it possible, the internet providers, I would like to thank them also. So thank you everyone, and thanks to Benny also, Yan Benny, for bringing up this program and coordinating and hosting this program. Thank you very much. So with this note, I would like to stop here and I hand over to the chair lady.
Yeah, I think that's it. So thank you all once again. Thank you very much.
Thank
and
you.
hope to see
Thank
you
you so
soon
much.
again.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so
Have
much.
a pleasant
Thank
evening.
you.
Margaret.
Okay.
Bye-bye, Margaret.
Bye-bye, Uncle.
Bye-bye, Anthony.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye, everyone. Stay safe, mo.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yes.
Bye-bye.